Ammar, if you can kindly come up to the stage. I would also take the honors to welcome the other panelists. First, I would like to request Dr. Shadha Al-Amri. Dr. Shadha is the head of Entrepreneurship and Innovation Department at UTAS, which is the University of Technology and Applied Sciences. Welcome, Dr. Shadha. Our next panelist is Dr. Ammar Al-Balushi. Dr. Ammar is the head of Faculty of Business Management at the Majan University College. So may I welcome Dr. Ammar to come up to the stage, please. Thank you, Dr. Ammar. So our next panelist is Dr. Sultan Al-Yahyai. Dr. Sultan is the co-founder of Code Academy. Thank you, Dr. Sultan. Our next panelist is Mr. Warith Al-Kharusi. Mr. Warith is the board chairman of Omani Center for Skills Development, Maharat. He also has a number of positions, and example is Oman Logistics Association. So welcome, Mr. Warith. So our next panelist is Dr. Khalid Nasir Al-Naabi. Dr. Khalid is the manager for the gradual transition to the entrepreneurial model of university projects at Sultan Qaboos University. Welcome, Dr. Khalid. Now I'd like to hand it over to Ammar Abdullah Baabood, our chairman for this panel discussion, and over to you, Ammar.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for that introduction, Sadiq, and thank you for all the panelists for being here with us on stage on this important topic. We're going to be going through some juicy questions to get as much interesting knowledge and facts and updates about what's going on in the world of the ecosystem of entrepreneurship and innovation. So I will start with my colleague, Dr. Shadha Al-Amri. I wanted to ask you firstly regarding how entrepreneurship can enhance the economic diversity, how it can make us more resilient and sustainable.
Okay, hello. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for having me here today. And I'm glad that to be with all of you here to even learn from you, in fact. Okay. So basically, as we are guided by Oman Vision 2040, there is a need for economy diversity. And as you see the indicators, you will feel there is a need to depend on non-oil, let's say, income for the GDP. So that we need to see the other opportunities and other, let's say, ways or channels to increase the economy. And one of it is the entrepreneurship, okay? So entrepreneurship, it has been seen by even the global reports, even by research, that affects the economy of all, let's say, country around the world. But there is important thing. There need to be someone to enable them. And the enabler is through a framework that show how all entities in, let's say, in the Sultanate should work together in order to support this channel of entrepreneurship. And for example, as we know, there is a, let's say, triple helix module. So we have the government, the industries, and the academia. All of us, we should work in a clear steps, clear framework. Each one knows what they have to do in order to build this kind of culture, because it is a culture. It is not just the money. It's not because if I don't have money, I cannot have a startup, or I cannot have, let's say, entrepreneurship. No, it is a mindset. It is a mindset, it is culture. If we have it, then it will go slowly, and we will see the, let's say, the effects. So I think this from my point of view.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shadha. So I think we need to be entrepreneurial, innovative in all aspects of the sectors, each sector and industry which we have, whether that's in the private sector, oil and gas, banking, academia, government as well. I think it's very important to have entrepreneurial ideas of how regulation and administration in the national economy can develop. So thank you so much for that. I will now move on to Dr. Ammar Balushi. So my first question for you is regarding if you can tell us what are some of the unique challenges and opportunities for entrepreneurship development in Oman's higher education sector specifically.
Assalamu alaikum, first of all. There are plenty of challenges. The concept of entrepreneurship is not new, but it's becoming the trend right now in the higher education and in education in general. So I would say one of the main challenges is accessing funding, accessing to funds necessary to develop the culture that Ms. Shadha has spoken about. And that's not a real challenge per se, but it's a challenge for the time being that requires a shift in the frameworks of managing the whole entrepreneurship and incubation centers within the higher education and education. And I think there is a requirement to start implementing the concept of entrepreneurship in education before higher education. And that's really important. When I'm talking about financial management, I'm talking about the concept of saving, the concept of generating ideas from a school stage where students think about ideas that they could take forward and try to capitalize on them. And then once that is done, it becomes the foundation gets built up. Right now, the foundation mostly gets built up at the higher education level. And ideas are created at the school level, but they are not properly, polarized, I would say, in a way that they could be taken forward to be used for an SME. So access to funding perhaps is one of the main areas that we would need to be talking about. And funding is available. There are so many authorities. The banks are having CSRs that are targeting those entrepreneurial ideas, I would say. Also, we need to have, as part of the opportunities, we need to integrate those successful entrepreneurs, in the market and could integrate them within the studies of entrepreneurship at school. So we could inspire those students to try and work harder on realizing that these ideas could become a reality at some point of time. The opportunities are there with technology is booming. We are having 5G, we are having IoT right now. What I'm seeing right now is a boom of a lot of businesses happening from Instagrams and social media, and that's a very good a positive kind of development. And I think we could help, and also the government is capitalizing on it by providing licensing for those businesses that are starting up on Instagram. So the framework is getting there. It's just putting all these things together and tightening the screws, I would say, to ensure that students know that there are funding available for them, and when they enter a specific course, a specific program, that they'll be able to capitalize on whatever project that they're working on to something, that can be used in the market. Yeah, thank you.
And I think I definitely agree with Dr. Ammar there. I think I have seen the foundation growing even on social media, for example, where you see these businesses and there are some licensing starting to take place. I also think that funding is slowly becoming more accessible to smaller startup companies in the country, whereas in the past it was not really there. It was more for the kind of larger corporates. So you see SME teams within banks, but other financial institutions as well. There are examples, for example, Invest are coming to visit some of the student enterprises here to have a look to see if there's anything that they can support with, and even across borders as well. So as you know, GHEDEX in Bahrain, there was interest for some of them to visit the upcoming COMEX to look at startups to see if they can invest. So it is becoming more accessible. I think the more accessible it is, the more stronger the framework is, and also I think more examples of success will encourage and inspire others to hopefully give funding. But also it starts from an early age, so the saving, the spending of money. I know some parents who let, for example, the children be involved in the financing at home, I think, which is a really good thing, and I think this can help them further in their business lives. So thank you, Dr. Ammar. Now move on to Dr. Sultan. Dr. Sultan, I'm going to ask you how to enhance the technical skills required to support IT-based startup and entrepreneurship in Oman.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ammar, for asking this important question. I think also I need to thank Dr. Shadha and Dr. Ammar for highlighting 2 points. That is the need for the ecosystem to be developed. It's a mindset for entrepreneurship and innovation, and also highlighting the booming of the number of startups and entrepreneurships on different social media. I'm coming from Code Academy, which is a training institute, and every day, on a daily basis, we are receiving contacts or questions, inquiries from small startups, entrepreneurs from the market, bigger organization, asking for training courses, technical parts related to the new trending technologies, artificial intelligence, data science, programming, coding, and that highlights one important concept, that even if we improve the ecosystem, even if there is a nice or good awareness level within the community about the importance of the entrepreneurship, still there is a need for the engine of it, which is the technologies. Today's startups are based on technologies. Today's entrepreneurship are based on technologies. Therefore, if we look into the current situation in Oman and the surrounding countries as well, for Oman, if we look into for the Global Innovation Index, we can identify that for the past few years, Oman ranked #1 in terms of the ratio of ICT graduates to the total number of graduates. And on the same time, we are facing a fact that we have high number of job seekers from technology perspective. So we need to look into that component. We need to improve the technical skills within the graduates, within the universities, within the training institutes, so that it would work in parallel with the increasing demand and the level of awareness within the community. So within our training institute, we believe that closing the gap between the academia and market need is an essential for our community. And we are doing that through what is called boot camps. So we are taking graduates, we run them through an intensive program for about 4 to 6 months so that they meet the market need, improve their skills, and then they would work as an engine for the entrepreneurship ecosystem within Oman and within the surrounding countries. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Sultan. Warith al-Kharusi, I wanted you to comment on some of the points which have been raised so far from your experience working on skill development. We've mentioned so far the funding, the framework around the ecosystem, in terms of the diversity, with the importance of how this can strengthen the economy going forward, and also the awareness within the youth and entrepreneurs.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'm glad to be here, and I'm very honored to participate on this panel. I think as Alex, the keynote speaker, said that let's have this stage as a differentiator in how we actually can move our ecosystem on entrepreneurship here in Oman. First of all, I'd like to clarify that I'm not a professor, I'm not an educator, I'm actually from the industry. I'm a practitioner. And what I've learned in terms of education, etc., is something a bit later in my life, where I had the passion of actually transferring the knowledge from the industry to the academia. So we opened up an academy called Maharat Academy, specifically to get graduates, students, etc., to be employable to the industry. As far as I'm concerned, entrepreneurship is the same. Being an entrepreneur is not just being an entrepreneur. It's to be able to have your passion, understand your product, be competitive in the marketplace, and basically innovate at the same time, and you will succeed. So to me, success of an entrepreneur has got three main elements. Has to have a relentless, passionate. He has to know his product very well, learn it. It has to be competitive. Those are the skills of an entrepreneur. And of course, within that, he has to be innovative, adaptable to the current situation. Also, as we have said here, he has to play the long game. The long game means navigating through whatever the systems are, whether there are challenges or problems or bureaucracy of the country to succeed. And I'd like to take one last example, and then I'll come back to commenting and what you've asked me to comment, is that I like to relate entrepreneurship to sports. The top athletes are not going to school and learning how to be a top athlete. They practice, they learn, they use role models, and try relentlessly to be the best, to be differentiating from whatever is done, because the top athletes, the 1 or 2%, are differentiators. They're not, the rest of them are pretty good, but the top 1% are doing something very special to come to the top. If you look at tennis, you look at football, you look at everything else, it's the same thing. So to me, that is the journey of an entrepreneur. And I would like to say that our education system has to be changed upside down. Because currently, whatever products we have, somebody told me about ChatGPT, which I didn't know about a year ago, it actually can write your essay for you today. So why do you have to learn, theorize everything, when actually you could ask it, and it will give you 90% of it, and then just do a little bit of changes, and you got your thesis. So to me, things are changing dramatically. I'm very happy to hear from Alex Johnson saying that this should be the stage. Why don't we pivot here in Oman and today take it to the next level? Are we going to continue educating for the next 10 years and make them, the graduates, not employable? And that's the problem we have today. If you look at any company, they say, yeah, we have graduates, but they're not employable, they're not competitive, they're not responsible, and so forth. And we've done that for the last 50 years. So if we keep on doing what we've done, we'll never get there. Today, we're talking about entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is not a discipline. It is something that you learn as you do. And I'm very happy to hear from Dr. Shadha. She was talking about the ecosystem. I think we can start seeing there's an ecosystem here in Oman. So I think that's good. Let's continue that. We hear about what do they want in the industry. But what is the biggest gap? We are not addressing that. We heard about funding. It's only one element of it. The skills of the entrepreneur is another element. The ecosystem is another. And also, for instance, the policies of the country needs a lot of redesign, I would say, or shaken up, or they put the right framework to empower entrepreneurs. Now, I will ask you here if there's any entrepreneurs. Any entrepreneurs here, around here? Okay. Are you finding easy in Oman? You can do what you can do and focus on what you do rather than what are the regulations and what the banks want and everything else, yeah? So to me, there's a huge challenge of the ecosystem its own right. A framework is not enough. It has to work. We have to set best examples. We have to have inspiring entrepreneurs standing here and sitting to us and telling us how they've done it. And there are a lot of them in Oman, and those are business leaders, and they probably haven't come from pure education, they come through the industry. So that's what I'd like to comment on, that each and everything that has been said here, it is actually correct, but we don't have the time. Oman has to change dynamically in the next few years to catch up with a lot more different countries. If you look at Dubai, for example, you look at Saudi. Saudi is actually moving very, very fast. They were probably behind in 10 years ago, but now life is changing. So if Oman wants to be the, actually, first of all, we have the inherent talent in Oman. We have a lot of education, we have a lot of multi-skills, for instance, even languages. When they say you can be very competitive when you have a lot of languages. So to me, I think there's a lot of ingredients in Oman that can happen, and I think we can be top in the Middle East, like many other things that we can, but we got to harness it and unleash that talent. So, Ammar, I hope I've said a few things, but maybe a bit more than that.
No, that's really, really interesting, and it's always good to have you because you have that industry knowledge, and you're the one who has experienced it and seen others experience it. I think having that academic and industry mix is really, really important. You mentioned about Saudi Arabia, and they have a big presence here in this event, and you're right, a lot of things are happening there. I think one advantage Oman has is that we can, true that we don't have the time, I think we can learn from others as well. I think we have that advantage that we can see how it's happened, seen from case studies and learn from that, but we have to start very quickly to start to build this ecosystem. So thank you, Warith. We'll now move on to Dr. Khalid and Naabi from SKU, and Dr. Khalid, I think we got you in last minute, but we're very happy to have you here. We always need some of the updates on the great things happening in SQU, and the main reason we actually wanted to have you here is that we wanted to ask you why is it important now for SQU to launch a strategic project of the gradual transition to the entrepreneurial model of universities.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, I'm really happy to be part of this panel. I think the answer can be collected from the answers from my colleagues here in this panel, because we're talking about big changes in the economy. We're looking for more diversity. We're looking for, especially coming from Oman Vision 2040, we're looking for more diversity in the economy. We're looking for enhancing our graduates and academics actually to transfer the knowledge into some kind of like product with value. And that is actually very important when it comes to every individual institution and unit in this country, including education sector and higher education sector, including Sultan Qaboos University. Sultan Qaboos University is not an exception. It should be like in the core. It should be there as one of the starting points for this kind of change. And this project is one of 20 strategic projects SQ has developed to intersect with Oman Vision 2040. Yes, time is an enemy. Coming late is much better than never coming. So yes, that's where we're coming from. So SQ is planning to enhance its students, enhance its staff members, academics, and administratives to transfer their research, to transfer the skills into enterprises, into products that can actually compete in the markets either locally or globally in a later stage. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Khalid. And we're really excited to see some of the great things coming out of SQ. I've heard lots of things about patents, and it's some serious good work going on there. So we're excited to hear more about that. Thank you. I will now move on back to Dr. Shadha. If you can maybe pass the microphone. Thank you. The question for you, Doctor, is how the Entrepreneurial University can support the entrepreneurship ecosystem.
Yeah, sure. So basically, we are in the University of Technology and Applied Science. Entrepreneurship is very important. Even the second goal of the university is linked to research, innovation, and entrepreneurship, because these all elements support each other. Even they say when they distinguish entrepreneurship from the other, let's say SMEs, there is an element of innovation. Why? Because if there is an element of innovation, the market size will be bigger. You will go to the globe, not just local in Oman. As well, if you notice from the, let's say, observation, the entrepreneurship, the growth rate is faster than normal SMEs, okay? So the innovation element is important. We in UTAS, we started long time ago. We already have, for example, in classes in academia, a course like a must. All students have to take entrepreneurship course. And as well, since like 3-4 years ago, we have a department of entrepreneurship and innovation. And this department will work together with academia. So they have some skills in class, some skills out of the class. Not everything can be learned in classes. So that's why those departments have some, let's say, activities, events to encourage students to build the skills out of this class. We have like 5 years of their, let's say, life in universities. This 5 years should be somehow invested to build that, let's say, person, an Omani person that can go to the market, can have his own job. And we have already successful stories with our students. Every year, our students, let's say, engaged in the Injaz Oman. Injaz Oman is like a competition for a whole year. It is not just 2 months. It is a whole year competition. The student will learn step by step how to build his business, how to, let's say, market it, how to do the financial, let's say, statements and all of those. So this like 5 years, the whole 1 year, it will build the skills slowly. And they are competing. They are even reaching to the finals. So it is side by side, the academia in classes and out class. So this is what we need to focus on. So this is it.
Thank you, Dr. Shadha. And you mentioned Injaz Oman, and we do have them here in this event. So I do encourage you to go and meet them, to learn more about them. They're doing some really, really great things. This question is for Dr. Ammar, and it goes back to the important relationship between the private government and academia, having 3 of them working together on this ecosystem. How can the Omani higher education institutions collaborate with the private sector and government to support entrepreneurship development?
It's extremely important to collaborate. It's important to look at global models of entrepreneurship, what's been implemented first in other leading markets, other leading schools or universities, and then try to get those good practices in here. So, but before I go into that, Ammar, I would like to just highlight, a positive kind of development. The industry might have maybe a wrong perception of academia in Oman. We are developing significantly in terms of entrepreneurship. I mean, if I speak about where we are at Majan University College, we have an industry advisory panel that is constituted with almost 18 CEOs, executive managers within the industry. I'm talking about companies like Ooredoo, Omantel, PDO. I'm talking about all these big companies. And they're part of our industry advisory panel, and they look at our programs. And we explain to them, they look at it to the point of looking at the syllabus, what do we cover? And they advise on what are the things that they think could be useful, what's the latest development. And we have meetings with them annually, approximately twice annually, and they look at it, they give us feedback, we have an action plan through it, and then it goes through the system of changing syllabus, improving the modules, and improving the programs. So yes, there is a gap, there always will be a gap, because there's always a development, but the development is positive. Otherwise, you won't see a lot of cafes and very interesting small businesses somewhere in Misfat al-Abreen in the middle of nowhere. You see so beautiful Omani projects. Those students are, one of them is one of our students, for example, and others are students from other colleges. So it's not always gloomy in a way. There is a lot of developments happening that is being buried. Maybe we could market ourselves better, I guess, but the result speaks for itself. We are having fairs, exhibition fairs, where students showcase their development. They pick brands, they start selling them. We had 2 months ago, we have an exhibition in the college where each of these students, group of students, they bring up and they sell some of the items. So that's the experience of selling and then being entrepreneurial over there. But we need to have more access to global frameworks of entrepreneurship, yes, and we are working on them. We are having an exchange programs with some leading universities around the world. We are working on tying up with them. We need to work on more with the SME authority. I'm sure there are a lot of funding for RIADA. For example, RIADA is one of the programs for the SMEs. And these entrepreneurs, some of them are struggling with challenges, real challenges. So those struggles could be our case studies where we could help them. So this is where collaboration is born between universities, colleges, and the industry, where we could actually contribute, our students could contribute in thinking about ideas on how to help those businesses to overcome those challenges and to ensure that, they could survive and thrive in that sense. So that collaboration and that pool of information is needed from the government in a way. And maybe, as I said before, tightening the screws and ensuring that we have strong bridges where we get information about those businesses from the government that are maybe struggling or that are thriving. The thriving ones could be our good examples of case studies for our students on how to handle issues and challenges within the Omani context, for example. The challenges, as one of the panel members mentioned, is Oman a good area, a good place to do businesses? In some way, yes. In some way, we need to improve more. There's always an improvement. I mean, if you look at our ranking, the Ace of Business ranking, we still have a long way to go when we compare to Qatar and Saudi Arabia, but we are going forward. That's the good thing. It's not too late. There's always time, and it requires more collaborative work. But it requires also more serious kind of questions. I mean, the keynote speaker spoke about a very interesting point of, can we start doing businesses, as faculty members? Is it, what would be our stance on it? I mean, I know our stand in our college is yes, you can. I mean, I'm not only an academic. I work in retail, I work in hotel, I do consulting for a lot of companies. We have our own businesses, and I know other faculty members who are also doing their businesses, so we are able to bring in the hands-on experience to our students. And what I know of, what I'm surely know of, is the senior management encourage bringing hands-on practical experience to our students. So more collaborative work of accessing the pool of information that the government has is necessary, bringing perhaps global leading models of entrepreneurship and trying to think. I'm sure it won't fully will be embedded because Oman is a unique culture, unique thing, but we could adapt and we could tweak in order to make it work for us. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Ammar. And that point specifically by the global framework is a very interesting one. Dr. Ammar with a positive take on it, which I really like, and about how it's about we're putting it all together. We should market the success stories and those businesses perhaps who are having challenges, how we can build the ecosystem to support them. I think as well, and what I've seen today and usually at such events is even academic institutions, getting together, networking, learning from each other, which is really, really important. So thank you so much for that, Dr. Ammar. Dr. Sultan, back to the focus on training institutes and how training institutes can inject entrepreneurial skills in their training programs.
Yeah, it will. I would say it really depends on the nature of the training institutes. Those training institutes focus on management. They could have a fully-fledged programs focusing on entrepreneurship. Coming from an IT training institute, so we doing it and showcase scenarios. Within our training programs, we basically so we ask our trainees to find a real scenario problem, and they develop solutions that would solve a real problem. We have scheduled programs to invite keynote speakers from the industry who have a success story as well as a failure story. And we emphasize on those. Use cases around it, and also we to develop the mindset and to build the capabilities on developing answers to serve other startups and organizations. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Sultan, and that's great that you're showing both the successes and the failures, and for those failures, if they can become successes, or whether there's, no point in continuing down that road. But it'd be great, it'd be interesting if you can bring some of them to the event so that people can see them when they visit. So that'd be nice if you could do that. Thank you. Warith, I will leave you for last because you will bring it all together with the industry perspective. So I'll move on to Dr. Khalid. I wanted to ask you, in relation to the gradual transition and entrepreneurial model of universities, why is it a gradual transition? And what are the main pillars of this project? And if you can tell us a little bit about the encountered opportunities or challenges.
Yes, why it's gradual? I think historically SQ is just more like teaching and research-based institution. Stepping outside this kind of box is not something really new. We have some kind of individual initiatives, but it's not institutionalized in a sense. So it's a collaborative work of different parties at the SKU. It's not like one individual initiative, of one college or one professor or one student. So as we are heading towards this kind of new phase for adopting entrepreneurial mode of universities, I think we need to take that seriously, and it's not an easy task when you're talking about a big institution like SQ. So that gradual nature of change is needed, and we're talking about changing cultures, changing programs, changing rules, so many things to be changed. And while we're changing to accommodate this kind of new tendency, I think we are facing different issues. Practically, this project is very new. It started last September. And as a project manager, I can see that we have a kind of opportunities, but also challenges when it comes to the mentalities of students, mentalities of professors, who used to be teaching, doing their own research, publishing, and all of this stuff, but never maybe thought about stepping up or stepping out of that box in order to transform their kind of research outcomes, for example, into a product that the market actually is needing. So this kind of mentality is one challenge. Also, when we talk about establishing linkages with the outside world, either public sector, private sector, my colleagues talked about that. And we need just actually to hammer this in the next phase as well. Again, I'm not saying that this is really new from scratch, but the whole institution needs to be more oriented toward enhanced entrepreneurship as an institution. So yes, we have this kind of like gradual understanding or let's say gradual movement to that model of universities. Sorry, I missed the other questions.
Sorry, I asked why it was gradual, what are the main pillars, and what are the opportunities?
When we're talking about this project, we're talking about like so many a number of initiatives, including reviews. We're trying to review legal issues related to entrepreneurship enhancement, organizational structures or frameworks within the SQ in order to enhance and facilitate entrepreneurship adoption. We're talking about training staff, training students in order to be entrepreneurs or entrepreneurship enhancer in their academic programs, in their projects, in the research, et cetera, et cetera. We're talking about media campaign to raise awareness among our staff and students. And that kind of like mindset needs to be like one big task in order to make people believe in that new mission. As a student and a staff member, I know that university is there to be teaching or to be taught. It's there to do some kind of research and publish, but to make something out of it, I think this is like something new to so many people. I'm not saying that none of our staff, none of our students have stepped out. We have some really marvelous examples over there in the market, and they really owe what they have received from SQU. But we think that we need to increase that qualitatively and quantitatively. Again, one of the initiatives is like establishing really strong ties with the outside world through contracts or through agreements or let us say kind of like understanding letters in order to enhance or facilitate that kind of collaboration between SQ and the outside world. So we're talking about a project that tries to, let us say, deal with different levels related to enhancing entrepreneurship at Sultan Qaboos University. At each stage, I'm seeing lots of challenges, but from these challenges, I think we have great opportunities for adopting a model for SQ later on, a clear model where we can actually develop based on other people's experiences. We're talking about different universities who have actually worked upon that for years, either nationally, regionally, or internationally. And I think we can benefit a lot from that. And as Dr. Ammar, he was talking about networking, establishing relationships with each other within Oman or outside Oman. So yes, this kind of project is trying to tackle these areas in order to find a place for SQ to be enhancing entrepreneurship. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Khalid. You have a big job, and we're wishing you all the best with that. Before I move on to Warith, because the time is tight, I didn't manage to ask the last question for the panelists. If there's anything else you'd like to mention before I let Mr. Warith complete this panel session. No. Okay, go ahead.
It seems you've covered everything. First of all, I think it's very refreshing to hear different universities doing a lot of good things, actually. I hear that the frameworks are actually becoming effective. The entrepreneurship as a discipline or a learning program is in there. But what I'd like to say is that it's not rocket science about entrepreneurship. It's really about leadership. And you actually can merge leadership, entrepreneurship as one. And as Alex said earlier, there is no doctorate of leadership or entrepreneurship in its own right. People learn through it and then they practice it and whatever. So I think we, as well here in Oman, we got to start thinking about how can we merge leadership with entrepreneurship. Initially, where do we learn leadership? Where do we learn entrepreneurship? It's from being young kids. So when we're about 4 or 5, when we start forming ourselves, that's the first time that people pick up talent. And they actually develop their talents by the time they're 12, 13. If you look at any sports, you don't have people at 20 starting to practice whatever sports they're going. They actually start from young age. So let us think about our educational system from the time we're in the nurseries and how we do things today. And there are many best practices in the world, you know, that kids at nurseries do a lot of good things about learning by doing rather than learning by being taught. So, so leadership, entrepreneurship is all a merger. It's a journey. You probably know that many countries in the world, young kids go to school, and then in the afternoon they probably wash cars, etc., father's car and mother's car, etc., and they get 2 riyals for it, 1 riyal for it. Those are kind of things we've got to start practicing before even finishing school. It's not, and then of course internships, because as you're in the colleges, it's one stream. But you got to know what the job is all about. Now, for instance, there are many good practices of entrepreneurship or apprenticeships and other things in different countries. We need to adapt, and I think a lot of the universities here have actually been adapting, etc. But I think there's still a big disconnect between the industry and the academia in Oman. Really, you need the industry to drive the academia rather than the other way around. Because what we're saying here is that the universities need certifications, etc., and they say, but we need the industry to be in the board. It should be the other way around. It should be the industry saying, these are the programs we want, these are the things that we want, and you have to train and practice what we want. It's the outcomes that determine employability, not employability for the sake of being employable. So to me, the frameworks are there. And I'd like to leave one thought here. And as you said, there's a lot of changes going on. I would suggest one thing. You cannot break up the current frameworks. I think they're improving. But what you can have is a special channel within the framework of universities to train leadership, entrepreneurship as a dynamic channel that probably breaks through the current frameworks that we have. Because the frameworks are very regulated, and the only way to do it is to have a separate channel of leadership, entrepreneurship that will drive that change in the faster way that we want to have it. If we're going to keep it at the same story that we need about 2 years to develop a program, by the time you finish the program, by the time you implement the program, it's 5 years down the road. It won't work. So to me, I think change is coming so fast. We need to adapt the frameworks that we have right now to design the new ecosystems of that. And there's a lot of good news about the Riyadh now taking a lot of effort. They're doing certification programs for entrepreneurs that is ongoing. But we need to make it public. We must make it available. Any entrepreneur who wants it should get it, provided they can show their competency. And then there's banks, there's all the other ecosystems have to also align with what is needed in the country for as a 2040 vision to develop unicorns that will serve the country and become competitive as a country as well. So to me, those are very, very important things that they have to be done. And we can only focus on certain things rather than each and everything that the university has to do. So I profess that we go from a separate channel, and that channel will actually drive the changes that you're talking about in a faster way. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Warith, and I like that point where you said that there's a lot of good things happen, but it needs to be perhaps on one platform, easy for everyone to see, easy for everyone to connect. So that's, I think, something really important. And there was just a point from Dr. Ammar, if you'd like to go ahead.
Thank you, Ammar. I think there is a philosophical difference between, what academia is trying to say and what the industry is trying to say. So there is a difference between studying to work and studying to learn and to have personal growth. I don't believe in studying to work. I believe in studying to learn and personal growth. And what you do with that knowledge is you're investing in whatever skills that you want, in whatever field that you want. The most important thing, as we mentioned here, is the culture, changing the culture, the mentality. I mean, we need to tell those young students that entrepreneurs is not a pathway full of roses and flowers. You'll need to be working harder than anyone else who's working for a 9-to-5 job. So you'll be having challenges. You'll be taking a loan. There will be a risk. You'll need to be ready for all that. It's really nice to be pushing them toward that road, but that road is not easy. You will need to work harder than anyone else in the room. It's not like you're going in the morning and coming for your family and then that's it, and you're getting the paycheck. You don't know if you're getting any paychecks. So all these perceptions, all these background stories needs to be as well told, as well with the opportunities that we are trying to promote. Because in the end of the day, universities are trying to equip you with the skills, with the knowledge, what you do with that knowledge. If you don't have the passion, you won't do anything about it. But if you have the passion, you'll be able to utilize that knowledge into something, into a project, into a business, for example. So there is this philosophical differences between us and perhaps the industry, but I think we need to be working on what exactly do we want, and we need to be realists in our expectations of changing the culture and the mentality of those students. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ammar. It's about the culture, mentality, it's about the risks as well. And when you were talking about risks, I was thinking about the karate, which is happening in the corner there. I think martial arts is just one example from a young age of how people can start to understand risk and manage risk and how to react from risks, because risk is, I think, a really big thing. And pushing people into these risks, you have to be very calculated, and I think that's a really good comment you made. So, ladies and gentlemen, Shadha, Ammar, Sultan, Warith, and Khalid, please give them a round of applause.